to Planet Joe. Please enter the pod and fasten the brain safety belt. This planet is intended for mature humans only. If you are the sapient type that gets offended easily, please exit the pod immediately. Enjoy your visit on Planet Joe Pod. Launching now.
Yo, yo, yo. What's up, my earthlings? Welcome, welcome. How is you doing? How was your week? You know what? I missed you. For rizzle in the hizzle, missed you. How was your week? For real. Hope all was well. Mine was good. I actually had last week off from podcasting. Thanks to the wonderful podcast we recorded 2 weeks ago with Adam. Yeah, that was a 5-hour pod. So I cut it into 2 and took last Sunday off and uploaded the other half. It was sweet. It made me think maybe I should go bi-weekly with these pods, but nah. Yeah, I don't want to do that. Well, I do because of my lazy ass, but I don't want to do it because of this awesome momentum that the PJP is gaining. And I don't know, this journey so far has been fun, and I'm glad to see that it's growing. We're gaining listeners. I'm happy to say we broke the 300 download mark. Episode 9, the first part with Adam Cartier, is the most successful and the most listened to pod so far, which in a way is not that of a surprise. The other day I was telling Adam, like, we keep listening to it and we're, analyzing and self-analyzing, criticizing each other. But yeah, a few days ago I listened to it again after, I don't know, a few days that I didn't listen to it. Came into it like with fresh ears, if that counts, after I heard it I don't know how many times. But I was, I don't know, I'm pretty proud of it. I was really happy with it. I was laughing with Adam. I was like, this is Rogan level. I don't know. I think we did pretty good. First Earthling on Planet Joe Pod. And for me, too, it was the first time hosting. And it was good. I think we did really well. I loved how, we transitioned from one topic to another. It was pretty smooth. How gentlemanly we were, and, let each other step in and throw in their 2 cents. I don't know. Overall, it was good. Anyways, this pod, episode 10, I'm just going to do a recap on this whole podcasting journey so far. Recap on all the previous episodes. And I don't know, maybe we'll do this every 10 episodes. Kind of a recap, self-review, maybe beat myself up a little bit, as I always do, but this time on air. But yeah, 10 episodes. I don't know, it's a small milestone. I'm proud of it. Proud of how it's growing and gaining listeners, and you guys coming back. And yeah, it's a good feeling. They say, what is it, like the 5th podcast? That's the mark where either you're going to continue or drop out. The average new podcast drops out after 5 episodes. They say if you go over 5, you're good. If you go over 7, you're better, and so on. So episode 10, here we are. How cool is that? So, excuse me. So here's the thing. This is what I'm going to try to do in this episode for the first time ever. I'm going to go... here's the thing. The biggest nightmare that I have, and I kind of like break a sweat before I start recording, it's the editing part. I always like... I spend like 4 hours, 3 to 4 hours just freaking editing. And it kind of discourages. Like every time I'm about to start my next episode and record it, it almost feels like a job, like, oh my God, and then the editing and all that. And when I recorded the episodes with Adam, oh my God, it was so nice to finish recording, chop it up, and like in two, not chop it up as in editing, cut it in two and just upload it. That feeling, I was like, dude, if I could do this every day, if it's just record and upload. So that's what I'm going to be working on in this episode, and I think from here on out. So the biggest problem that I had, and that's why I wasted so much time editing, is because I'm going to leave those beeps and ooms and ahs. It's going to be freaking live. Where was I? Yeah, the biggest thing is that I always got stuck with my thoughts, or so many ooms and ahs, and I think I got carried away though. My editing, I always deleted, like if it was more than a second of silence, I chopped it up, and that is so time consuming. It's like unbelievable. Like just to look for every second, and sometimes I had like a full minute or two of gathering my thoughts of silence and making mistakes, and then trying to say it again in a different way and deleting those, and it's just freaking a nightmare. So I think we're gonna go, or at least I'm gonna go to the next level. And in this pod, I'm committed to, no matter what, it's going to be live. I'm going to be recording this. So you're going to have to live with my mistakes, the oohs, the ahs. If there are any silent moments, I'll try not to shut up more than 2 seconds. But yeah, I'm just going to record it, and hopefully it'll go well. I can do this. I know it will. And then just upload it as is. It's the greatest feeling. So, yeah, that's that. So like I said, I'm going to recap the last 10 episodes. If you're new here, you'll probably enjoy this pod. And if you heard the previous episodes, stick around, a recap, refreshing your memory of the last 10 episodes. Okay, so let's start with the first episode, which I started June 20th, 2019, on my birthday. I think it's I don't know, for me it was like a cool time to start. Easy day to remember when PJP was born. Yeah, so first episode is A Planet is Born. I was a bit nervous, new equipment, and I always, I heard it once. Here's the thing. Every time after I record and I upload, I listen to the podcast from beginning to end. I'm not too crazy about hearing myself, but this is mostly for technical stuff, just to make sure that once it's uploaded, that everything's cool. The audio levels and the cuts and whatnot. So yeah, episode 1, I heard it only once since, what is it, like 4 months ago. Yeah, about 4 months ago. And I thought it was horrible. I beat myself up for it. And I don't know. I heard it today. I went over all the episodes so I can do this recap and talk about each episode. And for the first time since I listened to it a day after I recorded it, I heard it today. And you know what? It wasn't that bad. I don't know. There's one thing that I think many of you will agree with me, that we're our worst enemy when it comes to self-criticizing when we do something. And that's something all my life I needed to work on, especially when it came to back in my acting days and audition days. And I don't know, a good example, I've been through so many auditions for plays, and I walked out thinking I was so fucking bad, and I got the part. So yeah, I tend to beat the shit out of myself when it comes to, self-criticizing. So I need to work on that. On that note, the one that helped me climb that hill, from start till now, with this podcast, I said it many times and I'll say it again. It's Adam Cartier, who was here last week, and I can't thank him enough for that, because he more than once told me, like, you're too hard on yourself. You're being too much of a perfectionist. Just have fun with it and do it. And anyways, I'm not gonna talk too long about that, but I don't know. I think I'm starting to feel a little more comfortable, gaining more confidence, and here I am. I mean, this is, for me, it's the biggest test. Recording like it's live, no editing. Whatever is in the background, whenever I get stuck, it's staying. So hopefully I'll manage to do it radio style, and it won't be too bad. Anyway, so yeah, first episode. I was talking about, I gave a background about myself, a little bit about my life. I talked about the first step of starting this journey of podcasting. I talked about why I dropped out of YouTube, because before that, I started a YouTube channel and did videos. And to be honest, that's my biggest passion when it comes to, between audio and video. Video is my thing, my favorite, and I enjoy it much more. And but YouTube really sucks when it comes to building a channel and actually, creating a business and gaining viewers and whatnot. And I'll get to that. Actually, the second episode, that's where I expand on that. So I'm going to be talking about the whole why YouTube sucked so much. But yeah, that was the first episode. And like I said, when I heard it the next day after I recorded it, I thought it was freaking terrible. But today I heard it, I was like, for a first episode, it's not that bad. Which also made me think, hey, there is a plus of being a perfectionist, because I didn't want to record until I have the right equipment and whatnot. But anyways, going back to episode 2. Episode 2 is titled YouTube Sucks, and this is what I just mentioned. So in this episode, I talk about why YouTube sucks so bad and how horrible they treat the creators that made YouTube for who they are today. YouTube pretty much sold out and is giving a bigger platform to the big companies and the big channels, news channels, CNN, Fox, all these big channels, and they're kicking the creators to the curb. So in this episode, I started with the compilation audio of all the YouTube creators complaining about YouTube, talking shit about YouTube and how terrible it is, and how they're demonetizing their channels. And to hear this from creators who worked for 5, 6, 10 years on their channel and have over 1 million viewers, and they make a living from it, and that's actually their business. All of a sudden, in a flip of a switch, their business is demolished, just for whatever reason, for whatever the topic that they talk about, or the changes that YouTube is making to the algorithms. And they always hide behind the excuses of it's the algorithms, we didn't mean it, we're sorry. You constantly hear we're sorry from YouTube to their creators. But bottom line is that people work so hard to build a business where they actually, feed their family from that. And it's all gone. And that's when I saw that, I was like, fuck YouTube. I'm not going to, invest all my time and energy to build something that could be gone in a second. And that's what brought me to, researching, and podcasting kind of popped up. And podcasting, it's perfect, especially for someone like me who's very, I don't know if provocative is the right word, but my line of thinking is very different and out of the box, and not so normal, quote unquote normal, if you will. So it's something that I knew for a fact that I wouldn't. It's a matter of time before I get the boot on YouTube. Talking about sexuality, prostitution, policing, shootings. So podcasting, it's that freedom is what I was looking for, where you can talk about whatever you want. You own your own channel, and you own your listeners, which brings me up to, I'm going to, at the end of this podcast, talk about, I'm working on a new website, which I'm going to add a subscribe button, where I hope to get you guys to subscribe, and then we can be in touch through email. But yeah, I'll talk about that later. I'm going off track here. Anyways, podcasting seemed a perfect fit, and I was like, fuck YouTube. I still have, I think, 4 videos on YouTube, or 5? I don't know. Planet Joe TV, if you want to check it out. Which I don't look at it anymore for the same reasons I talked about before. I think they're terrible, as much as I invested to make them look good. But anyways, moving on. So yeah, episode 2. So I talked about YouTube, and then the second half, I kind of talk about transition from how YouTube sucks to free speech overall, social media, free speech on social media, and how social media is controlling and deciding what is free speech and what is hate speech, and how they boot people or content creators that they don't feel right or whatever. A good example is Alex Jones. So I talk about that in this episode. As much as I can't stand Alex Jones, and I think he's a nutcase, and his ideology is the exact opposite of mine, I was still angry that he was booted from Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, from all the social media platforms. And I think it's disgusting. I think free speech is free speech, even if, people say things that you don't agree with and you don't like hearing. They should have access to the platform just like anyone else. So yeah, I talk about that on the second episode. And then I go into, I think I end the episode with why religion is poison, in my opinion anyways, and in many's. I play a clip of George Carlin talking about religion, how it's the biggest scam, which I just realized that we played the same video on episode 9 with Adam. And I totally forgot that this video, I actually played it before on episode 2, the George Carlin one. But anyways, there's a gap of a bunch of videos in between, so it's okay. And also played a wonderful speech by Neil deGrasse Tyson, who talks about why creation is a fairy tale and doesn't align with science. And he kind of brings proofs, if you will, or evidence why creation is bullshit. So that's episode 2. And then episode 3, it's titled Happy/America, which kind of sounds Happy America, but it's pretty much 2 topics that are kind of like interlaced together. So in this episode, I talk about happiness and what makes us humans happy, what are we looking for in life and all that. And then I also talk about America, how much I love America and the flaws of America. I talk about that. You know, I don't love America blindly, like many Americans do, that they think it's the greatest country in the world. Well, I think it's one of the greatest countries in the world, but I'm not ashamed to talk about the huge and shameful flaws that this great nation has. So I talk about that, and then I'm reading a few articles about the topic, which that's another thing that I need to improve on. It's fucking reading. When I read on air, I sound like a robot. I need to work on my reading. For me, it's frustrating, you know, for someone who was an actor for so many years. But I guess just like anything, it's a muscle. If you don't use it for a long time, it's gone. So my reading ability is fucked. Plus, you know, I've been out of the country for 4 years. I don't use English that much, or I'm just looking for excuses. Don't mind me. Let's move on. I'll just work on my reading part. Anyways, also episode 3, I also talk about Represent.us, which is a amazing organization which I volunteer, and I also talk about that I can't wait to get home to actually physically volunteer there, and you know, be out on the streets and do whatever it takes. If you're not familiar with Represent.us, check out episode 3 and also go to Represent.us. Basically, their slogan is Unbreak America. They're all about taking corruption out of the government, which means making it impossible for big money to donate and to buy politicians, in a nutshell. I also play an awesome clip from Jim Jeffries, which is one of my favorite comedians. If you haven't seen his stand-up called Freedom on Netflix, definitely go see it. But I play one of my favorite parts of this stand-up where he talks about America, the flaws of, you know, America and all that, but he does it in such a funny way. And what makes it even funnier and much so joyful to hear, because everything he says is so fucking true. So yeah, play that. And after that, I go into Johan Hari. I play a TED Talk of his where he talks about addiction and why improving one's life is the only and best solution to addiction, to the addictions problems in America and around the world. Great TED Talk. You should check it out. Johan Hari, or just go to episode 3 and hear it. And then, to tell you the truth, I'm really happy with this episode. It was the first episode that I was like, fuck, it worked out really well. The transitions from, you know, one topic to another with the video clips. It was flowing pretty good. I was really happy with it. Yeah, that was the first time I was like, fuck, it just came together so nice. And then episode 4, titled Up Close and Personal. In this episode, I pretty much got personal, and then I shared lots of my personal shit. Most of it is about my son and the mother of my son, the relationship I have with my beautiful son, Perry. And, you know, how we met, how we separated. I talk about mental illness, borderline personality disorder specifically, which my son's mother has. I also share how much I hate living in Israel and what it's like from my point of view. I talk about that. Oh, and there was one thing that pissed me off in this episode. I heard it the next day, but I kept talking about the whole part when I was talking about how much I hate living in Israel. I kept saying street lights, the fucking street lights here, but I meant traffic lights. I remember I was so pissed when I heard it the next day. I'm like, fuck, I'm totally losing my English. I'm calling traffic lights street lights. But anyways, if you hear that episode from here on out, every time I say street lights, I mean traffic lights. I got that off my chest. That feels good. I kind of corrected that. I was so annoyed by it. But yeah, the other thing that I didn't like about episode 4 is that the editing is too tight. I'm going to talk more about the whole editing, but it's pretty much what I said when at the beginning of the podcast of me editing every, silent, every split of a second. But episode 4, I really chopped up. Like, I brought the words too close together. And I think it sounds a bit artificial and too fast and too tight. But not that bad. It's still listenable, if that's a word. Episode 5, Feel the Burn. So in this pod, it's all about Bernie Sanders, who I love and support and really hope he makes it to the White House. In this episode, I'm playing a 30-minute, I think it was like a 40-minute speech of his, and I pause here and there to weigh in my thoughts. So it came up to, I think, a little over an hour and a half with me talking and pausing the speech. It's one of my favorite Bernie speeches. I mean, a lot of it is the things that he says over and over, but it's just, I don't know. I like that episode. Came out good. The only thing I would change in that episode is the intro, meaning I didn't give a clear description of what the episode is going to be about. I kind of just go into it, and the listener, whoever, if you listen to it for the first time, I think only after maybe 10, 15 minutes in, you just realize that, okay, it's going to be about Bernie Sanders. That's the only thing that I would change. I would probably prepare the listener that it's all going to be about Bernie Sanders. But I did that in the show notes. But anyways, yeah, it's a great speech by Bernie, and I'm still passionate about him. And hopefully he'll make it to the White House. And if not him, hopefully Elizabeth Warren. Those are the only two that I am really hoping that they will get to the White House and make America great. I'm not going to say again. Anyways, episode 6. Episode 6. Okay, I'm lighting a cigarette. See, that's the pause where I would go into the editing and chop it up. But fuck it, you already know that I smoke. And that was the pause. I had to light up. Anyways, episode 6. One of my favorite topics, one of my biggest passions in life is sex. This episode, actually, I recorded it after a 3-week hiatus. I had an issue with the Rode mixer. Actually, it's not right to say Rode because it's not Rode's fault. It's not the mixer. I had electrical problems because of the adapter that I had with the cable. After recording for almost 3 hours, I probably kicked it or something, and the Rode just turned off, and everything I recorded was gone, evaporated. I was so upset I almost cried. I was like, fucking. So that kind of I skipped that week. I was like, fuck it, I'm done. But just want to bring this up that I contacted Rode, and they're fucking awesome. Their customer service is great. Since then, I'm recording both on the SD card on the in the mixer, and also audio. What is it called? The audio software. There's a name for that. AWD, Audio Workstation Digital something. Anyways, I'm recording on that as well. So I'm recording on my laptop and the Rode mixer. So yeah, skipped a week on that, and then I had a 4-day weekend with Perry, which was fucking awesome. So I didn't record on that weekend. We had such a good time. And then a week after that, I had a guest from the US. So that was a 3-week hiatus that I didn't record, and then jumped into episode 6. And like I said, sex, my biggest passion, my favorite topic, and the core of what I am and who I am. It's sexuality. So in episode 6, I talk about sex and human sexuality, why sex is considered a taboo nowadays, and why sex is healthy to our mental, physical, and psychological health. I only scratched the surface with the history of sex, but I talk about that a little bit. I mentioned the Mosu tribe. If you don't know who they are, you should definitely listen to this episode. Great stuff about Mosu tribe. And I also read some short and favorite paragraphs from my 2 favorite books on sexuality, which is Sex at Dawn by Christopher Ryan, and The Ethical Slut, which is also an awesome book. I also read some articles from 6 scientists and educators. Again, I heard this episode and I'm like, fuck, my reading's so bad. Still got to work on my reading. Very robotic, but the content is important. That's all that matters. Well, not all that matters, but at least the content is good, so it kind of covers up for the bad reading. Anyways, so I gotta come back to that and do more episodes on different sexual topics like polyamory, swingers, sex work, etc., which I'm planning on having more episodes on the topic. Me and Adam, we also brought it up. We talked about it here and there in episode 9. And also this episode 6, it took an unplanned turn by addressing mostly women. And I encourage women to free their inner slut in that second half of the episode, which I guess I don't regret, but I hope, it doesn't bore the male listeners on that part. But if I encouraged women or the female listeners to be more open and free with their sexuality and enjoy it, and mission accomplished on that episode. Anyways, that's episode 6, which came out pretty good. Happy with it. Wasn't too bad. And then episode 7, it's titled Grief, in loving memory of my beloved sister, who I lost in August 2015. This episode, it fell on the week, the 4-year memorial of my sister's death. that was that week, and I was planning actually to skip and not record because I was a wreck. But then I just decided to talk about that and share that with you. It's a bit of a depressing episode, but it's super personal, and I don't know. I think it can be interesting because I also talk about how to talk to people, to grieving people, and what's the appropriate thing to say or what's not appropriate to say. I also read a couple of articles about grief, and I also read some paragraph from the only book that actually I found that gave me some comfort. The hardest time when it comes to grieving. The book's titled Surviving the Death of a Sibling, Living Through Grief When an Adult Brother or Sister Dies. So I read a few paragraphs, highlights from that book. And like I said, I also talk about how to talk to a grieving person, what is appropriate and not appropriate to say. I don't know if appropriate is the right word, but you get my point. Anyways, there's one thing that I did forget to mention, kind of talked about, but I forgot something that was kind of important for that episode. At least it was very important, and I was kind of upset that I forgot to mention, is that it is a sentence where I had in my mind, but I forgot to say it. It's we don't choose where we're born, and in my situation, I didn't choose where I was born, and I didn't choose where I'm going to be buried. And to mention that, I'm actually going to be buried in Israel. It's not really a choice, but it's because I purchased the grave next to my sister. So when my time comes, I'm going to be buried next to her. And yeah, the irony of it is, as much as I hate living here, I was born here and I'm going to be buried here. So yeah, so I was kind of annoyed that I was like, I forgot to mention that, but here it is. Moving on, episode 8, Policing in America. In this episode, I talk about policing in America, and I share my perspective as a former police officer in Las Vegas. This episode is a personal gem. I'm happy how it came out, and it's probably my favorite episode. Not only because it came out really good, the fluidity of everything and the clips and whatnot. Maybe towards the end, I played the clips that were maybe a little bit too long. I played some recordings of police shootings and whatnot. So maybe a couple of them were, when I listened to it today, I was like, it's going on for a little bit too long. But overall, I think it's probably my favorite piece, episode 8, Policing in America. Now, especially if this episode changes one American's mind about police officers, it's worth its weight in gold. If anyone who doesn't like the police listened to it and made them think and change their mind, mission accomplished on that part. I also play awesome clips of smart people who are pro-police, as well as police training videos, and like I said, a few police shooting videos, which is audio, but still. And I break it down, and I pretty much explain it from a police officer's point of view. And I also shine a light on how many police officers are killed every year, which the media does not talk about. I mean, maybe it's wrong to say the media does not talk about it. The media talks about it only locally, but it's never national news. But I do mention that. I talk about that. And great episode. If you haven't heard it, go listen to it. And episode 9, the first Earthling to land on Planet Joe Pod. Adam Cartier. We talked about it for so long, and I think in previous episodes I mentioned like next week's Adam's going to be here, and it didn't work out. And finally, episode 9, it happened. The long-awaited first Earthling finally landed on Planet Joe Pod. So that was 2 weeks ago. In this episode, me and Adam talk for 5 hours. I cut it into 2, like I said before, part 1 and 2, which earned me a weekend off from podcasting last week. And we talk about many interesting topics. Adam's a smart man, and he's a joy to listen to, especially with his British accent. He has this radio voice. If you haven't heard the episode, you gotta go listen to it. It was a blast, and I truly enjoyed it. It also brought home the realization of how hard it is to record solo, and how much better it is to host a guest. It was effortless. It was fun. I don't know, and not only that, it's this episode is what is it? Episode 9. That's the most successful episode so far, with over 300 downloads and 92% retention, which is freaking amazing. It is good though. It's a good episode. Really interesting listen. The only thing that I regret in this episode is drinking too much. I think I was downing glasses of vodka, too much. And you can sense it, I think, when you listen to it. I struggle to find words, names. I struggle to gather my thoughts. I don't know. I might be hard on myself, but when I listened to it, I was like, oh, I can tell I'm buzzing like a muzzin, and it's not the right time to load up on booze. So I learned from that episode not to drink too much on air. Drink a couple, get a nice buzz going, if at all, but to be more focused and there. I also regret not answering a huge question that Adam asked, and when I heard it, I was like, sober. I was like, "Fuck, how could I not think of answering that?" Maybe it's not fair of me of doing it now because Adam's not here, but I guess we'll bring it up when he's here, because we did talk that he's going to come back, and we're going to do another episode for sure together. Looking forward to it. So yeah, it might be a bit unfair of me of saying this now when he's not here, but when we talked about capital punishment, and he said you don't believe in capital punishment, and then he brought up, but as a police officer, you believe that cops should kill someone who's a threat, and that's like capital punishment. And me being buzzed as I was like, "Oh, you got me." And when I heard it, after that, I was like, "What the fuck? It's not the same thing." Capital punishment is revenge killing, whereas police officers, when they have to shoot someone, it's an imminent danger to themselves or to civilians. Totally different things, but I'm not going to expand on that because I feel it's unfair that Adam's not here to rebuttal, if he has a rebuttal. But we'll definitely bring it up next time he's here, because I think it's totally different. But I gotta admit, I feel better that I corrected it now, because every time I heard it, I was like, why didn't I say it? Why didn't I think about it? Fucking booze. But there we go. Maybe there's something for us to start the next podcast with. When we start recording, we're going to start there, maybe talk about that. Who knows? I don't know. Anyways, it's so far it's going really well. I'm going to lie if I'm not going to say that I was nervous as fuck, because I was like, this time I'm recording it live, like no editing, no pausing, no stopping to gather my thoughts. So far so good, but I'm not going to jinx it. So anyways, yeah, That's one thing that I want to eliminate, the editing nightmare. If I can eliminate that, I think it'll be much more enjoyable to do this podcast. Like I said, up until now, it felt like a job. The recording part is fun, but I was like, the editing after that. Oof. So if I eliminate that, it's gonna be fun, easy, record, upload, and ta-dam, bada bing, bada bang. All right. And again, like I said, I'm gonna probably not read that many articles, and if I will, I gotta work on the reading part. And also not to be too hard on myself. I'm trying. That's, working on that. And again, I thank Adam for that. I beat myself up constantly. I don't know. I'm blabbering things like I'm thinking out loud, like where should I improve, or what's, what I should do from, moving forward. And like I said before, I'm sure you feel that, or many of you will agree that we can be our worst enemy when it comes to success or, criticizing ourselves. I'm notorious when it comes to that. I always give shit to myself when it comes to those things. But I keep doing it because I love doing it, and I don't know. I like sharing and making a difference. Hopefully, after a while, you'll hear that it does make a difference. I'm also working on a new website, planetjoepod.com, which I'm adding a subscribe. I mentioned this before, where you can subscribe to my mailing list, and then I can shoot a weekly email and update you on, what's going on, what's the next episode, or I don't know, whatever. But at least I feel that we're connected. So I think that's important, to have that subscription option, so we can be in touch outside of this pod. And I think the website came out good. I don't know. I'm waiting for the next paycheck to go live with that. It's pretty much finished, but got to pay hosting for that. So what's today? The 20. Yeah, in about 2 weeks, it'll be live. And tell me your thoughts. That's another thing that I want to talk about. We have over 300 listeners, but total silence on social media. Like, why are you guys shy? Go to Facebook, say what you think, say what you want. But on the other side of the coin, I know that, listening to a podcast is only when you're driving and when you're at the gym. It's not when you're on your computer. So I do take that under consideration. But, I would really love to hear from you. Anything. Anyone there? Say something. Anyways, so another thing, things are moving along, my personal shit with my son's mother, and it seems like for sure early next year I'm finally gonna go back home. Like I said, we have the trial on October 27th, and that's probably gonna end this nightmare. And I'm almost positive I'll be able to leave. And, I've been thinking about that. When I leave, I'm going to start packing up the shit. And I'm going to, move and all that shit. I'm like, I'll probably have to break for I don't know, 3-4 weeks. I'm already worrying about that. It's like 6 months, 5 months from now. And I'm like thinking, what's going to happen then? I'm just blabbering. I can hear Adam says that. He told me that before. Don't say I'm blabbering. That's what I was talking about, giving myself shit. But yeah, see, thanks to Adam, I catch myself. See, Adam, I said blabbering and I caught it. So I take it back. My peeps, I'm not blabbering. I'm sharing. Anyways, so yeah, the plan is when I get back home to the States, I'm planning on setting up a nice studio in my house, dedicated for that, for a podcast where I don't have to, take out the equipment every time. It's just going to be set up. And I'm also planning on adding video to YouTube. So if you're asking, you said, fuck YouTube, why you're talking about YouTube, this one's not going to be, it's going to be like a side dish. It's not going to be my main thing, but I think it would be nice, a nice addition to have video of this podcast. And yeah, I'm going to be working on having guests on these topics. Right now, it's difficult because I'm in Israel, and all the guests that I'm very interested in interviewing, if it's high ranks in police departments, police officers, or sex educators, sex coaches, or whatnot. So the time difference is too harsh. When it's daytime here, it's nighttime there. So, but luckily I have Adam. So he's going to be a guest a couple more times, I guess, before he goes to China and before I go back home. So yeah, that's that. I don't know. I hope I'm not too boring with my just thinking out loud and trying not to be quiet more than a second. I think I did good. Hopefully I did. And I think that's it, my peeps. Episode 10. How cool is that? 10 episodes in about 5 months, something like that. But yeah, try to, make an effort. Say something. Facebook, Twitter. I don't know. Right now, all I see it's the analytics, and I see, over 300 listeners from all over. Most of you are from the United States and Israel, and then we got UK and Ireland, Brazil, Japan. But I would love to hear from you, really. Just even say hi. Jump to the Facebook page, Planet Joe Pod, and just say, hey, we're here. Anyways, like I mentioned before in previous podcasts, if you want to support, don't forget I have a Patreon, even though I don't offer anything on Patreon for now. Anything helps. Also, check out my t-shirt design website, planetjoedesign.com. That also support, every t-shirt you buy. It's $2-3. It helps. Also, if you are an Apple user, if you can give me an review on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, I would really appreciate it. Positive or negative, doesn't matter. Positive or negative review, it helps a lot to get reviews on iTunes, on Apple Podcasts. So if you can jump there and throw in your 2 cents in rating, I would appreciate it. Okay, and if you haven't joined yet, join the Facebook page. Try to throw in a few words. And before I forget, here's a new thing that I want to try. If you can. Anyways, I'm on Anchor.fm, which is a cool podcast hosting website. But they have this cool thing. It's audio messages. If you go to Anchor.fm /Planet Joe Pod, you'll see a button where it says record a message. And you can record yourself up to 60 seconds, up to 1 minute. So I want to do this thing of, try this thing of anyone who wants to record a message about any topic that I've been talking about, or about Planet Joe Pod, about this podcast, about anything, whatever. Record your message, and I'll be playing it on this podcast on air, and I'll reply to it on air. How cool is that? So who's going to be the first one? Go to Anchor.fm /Planet Joe Pod. You'll see on the bottom right a button that says record a message or leave a message or something like that. Record yourself, whatever you're thinking, whatever you want to talk about, and I'll play that recording and I'll reply to it. Anchor FM. That's pretty cool. All right. Anything else? I don't think I forgot anything. We just got to secure the next date to have Earthling Adam Cartier for the next pod. And next week, I don't know what the topic will be yet. I have many, but I haven't decided which one. Or who knows? Maybe Adam will be here. I don't know. We'll see. Until then, my peeps, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for hanging around, and thank you for your support. And don't forget, throw in a word, say hi. But until then, I think this is it. And again, I love you. Thank you. I'll see you next week. Peace out, my peeps. Have a safe travels to planet Earth. Bye-bye.